You, Adam and Evette, can you believe it? Giving you some rhyming Cockney slang from London. I've been living in Italy for 3 years next month. I cannot believe I've been living here for such a long time. But you know what? When I moved here, I made some big mistakes, and I've been thinking a lot about those this week because, you know, we kind of tend to do this when there's anniversaries. So let's talk about some of those terrible mistakes, shall we? In case you want to become an expat, or you know, you just think, what the hell did she do? Let's get into it, shall we? So, the first big mistake that I made when I moved to Italy 3 years ago was that I didn't spend enough time learning the language. This is a huge mistake that kind of is the catalyst of all the other mistakes that I made in my journey here, because I took it for granted. I'm going to be honest, I took language for granted. When you live in a country where you don't have to think twice about the things that you say or what people say to you or what you read or what you listen to, you don't really appreciate the importance of language. But when you are put into an environment where only a minority of people can fully understand you, and even then, not fully, completely, it's like, I've never experienced anything like it. And I kind of wish that I had spent more time in those 8 months, because it was very sudden. I'm not going to lie, not everybody becomes an expat in such a short period of time. Some people take years to map out their expat experience. For me, it was one of those moments where I came to Italy in 2017 on holiday. I immediately fell in love. I came back again in the autumn of that year, and I made the decision that I wanted to live here. It was that spontaneous. And you know, I'm not crazy, although on paper it might seem that I am. I followed my gut instinct, and I've learned a lot in life that to follow your gut, you'll never get it wrong. And by far it was the best decision I've made. But obviously in that space of time, I was so focused on finding work and transitioning my life and sorting out my business in the UK that I didn't spend enough time focusing on the language. I didn't even really think about it, to be honest. I thought that I could get by. English is like an international language, let's face it. But unfortunately, especially in the south of Italy, the level of English is very low, and it's such a pity because, you know, it's used as a language in so many countries around the world. But that said, it made my experience here so tough for like the first year and a half until I met some other English speakers. And, you know, I would just say that if you are thinking of moving to another country where your language isn't spoken, take the time, even if it's just 10 minutes a day, to learn some phrases, to expand your vocabulary, to listen to conversations in the language of the country you're in, because I didn't do any of that. And you know, it really led into the other problems that I'm going to talk about now, because the language was just the biggest thing that I found most difficult about living here and moving here. And so I think, you know, you just have to dedicate the time to it, and 10 minutes a day is honestly better than nothing. And even though now I am learning the language, and I'm grateful that through immersion, through living in this country, I have picked up and understood things far more than just reading a book, I think my experience could have been a lot easier to begin with if I had known the language, primarily because I would have been able to communicate myself a lot better, to be able to express my personality. And this was something that I found so hard, and I've spoken about it in some of my other videos. I'll link above things I found difficult about life in Italy. But not being able to express my personality was so difficult. I literally went from being this bubbly woman, wanting to have a giggle and a laugh and enjoy life, to being somebody who just used to sit in groups. Like, it was literally really debilitating, I think, is the best way to describe it. And it led to me feeling very isolated and very lonely in that first year and a half, despite the fact that I did make connections with some people. My connections were not very big. Like, it was a very tight-knit circle of people that I really connected with at that early point. And I think, you know, I limited myself and hampered myself a little bit by not speaking the language. So please take the time to learn the language of where you're going to be moving to, because it makes such a difference to your experience. The second big mistake that I made when I first moved here 3 years ago was that I lost my independence. Goodness, this is a big one for me to admit, because I'm a hugely independent person. I left home before I was 20 years old. I started my own business from boxes of china. I've always been career driven. I've spent like 10 years of my life working in professions and building my skills and my knowledge, and I never want to depend on anybody for anything. Like, I came here and I had met somebody and formed a relationship very quickly from moving here, and I suddenly became very dependent on my boyfriend, and it was something I wasn't used to. And I felt like all the things that I could once do on my own, like sorting out all my paperwork and bureaucracy matters that I needed to do for the transition here, I suddenly needed to be babysat and to be taken to places and have things translated for me. And I lost all of that confidence and self-belief that I had in myself when I lived in the UK, and it was very strange. I rapidly felt like I'd turned into a child, and it put a lot of strain, I think, on my relationship at the time. And I always believe that everything happens for a reason, because if I had carried on in that way, I honestly don't think I'd be sitting here now recording these videos, having created the life I had, because I wasn't happy. I felt like I had no purpose. I felt like I didn't know how I was ever going to really settle myself here. And then my relationship broke down. And it broke down like the latter part of 2019 into early 2020. So, sort of around the pandemic period. And all of a sudden my life completely changed. The life that I had known when I moved here completely changed. I had to move home. I set up my own apartment, and I sorted out I upgraded my job. I made new friends. I connected with a Facebook expat group, and finally could connect with other English speaking people, and I completely transformed my life at that point. But it took that moment of everything that I thought was my life to crumble down for me to build something a lot better for myself. And I now can finally say, 3 years in, I have my independence, and my relationship has rekindled itself, because I feel like I'm back to being the person I was when I first met my boyfriend way back at the beginning before I moved here. And it's like, this is how it is. Like, this is how life goes sometimes. Things fall apart so that better things can come out of it, and I'm proof of that. Like, literally every part of my life is upgraded. My work, my home, my friendship circle, my independence, everything. And on the back of it came Ms. Britaly, and this whole concept and this YouTube channel. So I've definitely found myself, and this is the first year where I can stand on my own 2 feet and be like, I don't depend on anybody. Anything I want done, I do it myself. And I'm in a country where I speak like a 3-year-old. So come on, this is what it's about. And I realised that I was very needy and clingy when I first moved here, because it was my first expat experience. I didn't speak the language, so this is where it stems back into the language again. And yeah, I just kind of latched onto the people that I knew, because it kind of felt safe, I guess. Like when you move somewhere on your own to a brand new country, you kind of tend to connect with the people that you do know and hold them tight because it's a brand new experience. So yes, I am really grateful now that I've completely changed that, but it was a huge mistake that I made when I first came here, definitely. And I would definitely say, retain your independence in whatever way, shape and form you can, because it's really horrible to go the opposite way. And the third big mistake that I made when I first moved here was that I tried to give up my British heritage. This sounds so crazy, but I was trying to think of ways for me to fit into Italy, and I was like, I've chosen to move to Italy. I need to adopt all the Italian ways. I need to not reminisce about the UK, not talk about the UK, but just be all about Italy. And then I was like, hold on, Claire, I'm from the UK, I'm from London, and I'm proud to be a Londoner. I'm proud to come from the UK. Just because I've chosen to live in another country doesn't mean that I have to give up my heritage. Doesn't mean that I have to give up the beliefs that I've had since I was a child. It doesn't mean that I have to change my life and the way I do things necessarily just because I live somewhere else. Yes, it's all about adapting, and I talk about this in some of my other videos. Especially this one here where I talk about the mistakes expats make. You need to adapt when you live in another country, yes, but there's a fine line, I should say, between adapting and completely abandoning. who you are as a person, and I went to the extremity of abandoning who I was as a person to try and fit in with life here in Italy. And it's only in this past year, I guess, like post-pandemic, well, we're kind of in the pandemic still, but you know what I mean, that I've been like, yes, do you know what, I can be British, I'm proud to be British, I'm proud to be a mother tongue English speaker here in Salerno, I'm proud to be a teacher, I'm proud to help other people, I'm proud of my heritage, I'm proud of it all. And you know, this is the first year I can sit here and say that and be proud of my roots and not try to disguise them or hide them because I feel like I need to fit in. So it happens to all of us. We make mistakes when we make big changes in our lives, but it's the learning from them that makes such a difference. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy some of my other content, and I will see you in the next video.